healthcare in between. Physics, art, and math got us down this path. Historical tales come alive, where science and stories dive. Blended facts with heart, knowledge from the start. Need bridge blues we sing to the future memory. Health and science in the mix. Midbridge got the fix. Complex subjects make
right
clear
now
every episode
in ways that we actually acquire
Ramana
these
leads the way,
and ways that
explaining
make
day
me
by
more
day.
efficient.
In the world of digital streams, turning knowledge into dreams. Through the tales of old, new stories unfold.
Thank you so much for joining with me. It is truly an honor and a privilege.
MedBits Webcast is a new kind of healthcare media channel to break the silo mentality and foster interdisciplinary thinking. Our mission is to fill that gap and to create a curiosity through different lenses, tapping the passion that guided the historical figures in medicine and bringing present-day groundbreaking research to the front lines. We interview physicians and leaders in the industry about present-day healthcare challenges on our live programming.
Hey, welcome to the MedBits Webcast. This is Raman Anamaraju. I'm the host. Thank you for joining. I have a very, do you remember those days that Blockbuster Video? We used to go to the Blockbuster Video and get those videos and then they play at home. That's they used to be. So what they did is Netflix came in. Then they wanted to sell the Netflix to like a small million. Already, Blockbuster is a $4 billion company. So they are in Dallas. They're from a Dallas-based, Texas-based company. So the Netflix guys from Silicon Valley, they went to the Dallas and say they want to sell this idea to the Netflix idea to the Blockbuster Video. They said that they rejected it. Oh, this is a small company. What the hell they do? So that is a death of Blockbuster Video. That is a prime example of where the corporations don't do innovation. The same thing happened in the Kodak. They invented the digital camera and then they gave it to somebody else. So this kind of things happen if the corporations don't take serious innovation, because these are small companies or stealth mode. They do that, they disrupt this process. And if you are not ready, corporations fail. The best way to do is combine them together, innovators and the entrepreneurs and the corporations. They work together, usually get the results, and you can advance the problem with the entrepreneurs working themselves. They don't know what is the end goal is. Yeah, they think, oh, I can be Mark Zuckerberg. I can be. This is not going to happen because they don't know the end goal. Corporations have a very defined goals. So that is a big advantage of the corporations opening the innovation centers on their own. For that, I have a very great guest, Diana Joseph. She's joining from Silicon Valley. I met her just briefly one time. It is really interesting how she does. We have a lot of accelerators, incubators in Silicon Valley, but corporations opening the innovators is a very interesting kind of thing that we needed, actually, corporations to survive. So let me introduce you, Dr. Diana Joseph. She's a Ph.D. woman. Let me bring her to the stage.
Hello.
Hey, welcome, Diana. Welcome to the MedBits Webcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, give us some background of yours, your personal, professional background a little bit.
Sure. Should I be able to see you, by the way?
Yeah, you could. Yeah, I'll okay.
You'll come back later? Okay,
I'm coming. Yeah, okay. You can go ahead and say, yeah.
So, I got my start after college. I went to grad school to study learning sciences. So learning sciences is an interdisciplinary field. I saw in your video that you're very much interested in interdisciplinary. I was too. I was in that field. We think about education, cognitive science, computer science, psychology. We try to understand how learning really works for human beings. And given how we think it works, how should we design experiences that are really sticky, where we can actually change our minds, where we can actually take these changes forward into our daily lives. And I studied motivation, specifically how the motives that we bring into a learning space change the way that we pay attention and what we take away, right? If we're coming in to get a grade, get a check mark, that's one way of paying attention. If we're coming in because we need this information to get something done that we care about, that's a different way of paying attention. And so how can we leverage those different motives at different moments in the learning experience? I really was thinking a lot about agency, people making their own choices in learning environments. And that's kind of carried through after spending some time in academia, looking at adult learning, looking at technology adoption. I moved into corporate. I worked at Adobe right at the beginning of their move to the cloud. I bet you remember that too. We used to you used to go to the store. Remember those days, Ramana? If you wanted software, you went to the store, and it came in a big box. And inside the box were a bunch of manuals. And there were people who were writing those manuals. Their job was to basically interview the engineers, figure out what the features were going to be for a new piece of software, and write this kind of encyclopedia of it. And that changes. As soon as you move to the cloud, you can draw on the entire world of Adobe educators who are out there, and you can give people just what they want when they need it. So they wanted a learning scientist to help them think through that delivery. It was a very interesting experience. I learned a lot about change management, helping my colleagues convert from being writers to being ethnographers and curators. And then I got exposed to their internal innovation program. So that was really the start of my opportunity to get some insight into corporate innovation. We had this wonderful acquired entrepreneur at Adobe. His name was Mark Randall. He was the VP of Creativity, best title ever. And he created an experience where participants, employees at Adobe, got to learn innovation methods, and then at the end received some funding. It was a little credit card with $1,000 pre-approved on it.
Is it the internal innovation center for the first time? That's what you're saying?
It wasn't exactly a center. It was a boot camp.
Program.
So we got 3 days. Yeah, it was a program. We got 3 days of this really inspiring guy, and to the kind of traditional Silicon Valley methodology called Lean Startup. And then these resources that we were given really reminded me of the work that I had done to understand agency, right? So we're given these resources, and the message that gesture embodies is that we are invited to go pursue something. We have a little bit of resources. There's no process for getting it approved. We're already approved. We're already trusted, and we should go study something, and we should go, make something new, or see what customers need in the area that we have noticed. And then if it turns out interesting, bring it back to the company. If it turns out not interesting, that's okay. We don't want to put a lot of process on it. It was a very thoughtful design.
You mean to say customer feedback they're not interested in customer
feedback?
Oh,
no, of course they're enormously interested in customer feedback, but not on everything, right? The organization itself has only so much power as an institution to put into a small set of very strategic goals. This was more of like an opportunity to take advantage of all the thoughts that employees had that hadn't necessarily made it into the boardroom, hadn't necessarily made it into the strategy conversation. Just like, so for example, my children were young at the time, and they were bringing home a gazillion pages of art, right, from school, just like so many things. And, they're still piling up in a cabinet somewhere. And I wanted to, I thought Adobe could take advantage of that specific audience and do something specific with it. And it's not something that, if I had to make that case to get resources to actually like make a technology, that's a lot of resources, and making that case would take a long time. But to go and study it with my fellow moms from where my kids go to school, that's not very expensive. I can learn a lot and bring that back to the organization very quickly. So that was the concept, is to
What was the
open up some
result?
extra eyes.
Mm.
It was really interesting to hear
You're
about what.
hesitating here. That's why I wanted to ask you. You're
Well, I
kind of
didn't get to it. I actually left the company. So I want to tell you about that piece of the story. I left the company before it could turn into a technology. I
okay.
do think maybe it could have, but I liked that project, but I really liked this concept of giving people agency inside an organization to go and learn something. And that's what I wanted to do. And I tried to convince the leader of that project that he should hire me. I should leave the role I was in and go and help him do this. And he was not convinced. The methodology is called lean startup. And what that means is that you only use the resources you absolutely need. And he didn't need me. I mean, it would have been fun, but he didn't need me. And so I actually left. I went to a company called Citrix and ran their innovation enablement
I remember
program.
Citrix.
I
Kind of
yeah.
a operating system. It sits on the top of the operating system, right? Something like
Some
that.
of it's actually a pretty. They were creating tools that were a pretty important part of like the infrastructure of the internet, like how
Yeah.
packets of information get back and forth, and
Get right.
then
Yeah.
other things stacked on top of that, like early video conferencing before
Yeah.
we
Early
all
video
like needed
conferencing
it.
I was doing
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah. So my job there was to teach design thinking, and another Silicon Valley methodology with some similarities, to teach design thinking around the company. And we were going to make the entire company human focused, which is really hard to do in a company that makes these giant pieces of technology, the enterprise level, infrastructure level technology that most people don't even know is there. So how do we make that human focused? And so I got to go to Stanford and study design thinking, and a lot of things came together there for me, because again, like more words about human agency and about how we study the world while we're trying to change it at the same time, which is connected with methodologies I worked on as an academic. And so we started doing these design thinking workshops. We were teaching some of them.
That is also a prime example of
Mm.
Citrix operating system. They lost to Zoom and everybody else. So that they are the initial original
Right.
vendors for the video conference.
Yeah, they were early to experiment with video conferencing, but it's a really nice example. I'm glad you brought that up. I hadn't really thought about it this way, but it's a nice example of how a big company can be the wrong company to take something forward, right? So
Yeah.
if you think about what Citrix is selling, it's selling these giant server decks and the software that crunches the packets and makes them go. And then they're trying to do video conferencing, which is really more, it's not exactly B2C. You can still sell it to a company. So it's still B2B in that sense. It's enterprise in that sense, but it's something that we all touch and feel every day. And it can be sold on the basis of how people feel about it. Like, kind of just on the basis of the experience of personal usage.
Yeah.
And the way that you sell something like that is completely different from the way that you sell these giant pieces of equipment to a very sophisticated IT department that does not want to hear about anybody's feelings. It's not about user experience should be part of it for sure. But the fundamentals are so important when you're, and we had all of the infrastructure at Citrix was designed to create and sell these giant systems.
I was using actually Citrix to sell medical devices one time. I was trying to use that, so that's why, yeah.
Got it. That's cool. So you were actually, that's fun how it's nice to see how our stories overlap. Yeah. So I don't know that Citrix was the right company to make it happen, and it might have been the right choice for them not to do it. And I wonder sometimes about these other stories that we tell about the terrible mistakes people made. Like, I don't know, we don't get to know what would have happened if they tried something else. But I do think there are a lot of lessons to be learned, a lot of from the different experiments that companies have done.
So what led you to become a corporate starting a corporate innovation forum accelerator you wanted to start. What
Yeah,
led you
yeah.
to that point?
Well, so I was at Citrix and we were doing these design thinking workshops and they weren't working the way that I wanted them to. Like people would have a great experience. They'd have these kind of epiphany moments, their common sense is handed back to them and it feels wonderful. And then they go back to the office and they can't apply what they've learned because the things around them haven't changed. The processes are the same. The other people have not had the same education and it felt a bit stuck. And so we wanted to try some other things. We wanted to understand what wasn't working and try and see what could work. And we ended up collaborating with the Startup Accelerator. So that was my exposure to startups and to the idea of having startups influence a large organization. We built a curriculum there that was part lean startup, part design thinking, part another one called Agile that's more kind of focused on engineers, but they all are about human-centered design, entrepreneurship, innovation. And we ran that curriculum with dozens of startups in like 6 different cities, including Bangalore and a bunch of cities in North America. And then I kind of caught the bug. So I have been talking about agency all this time, and my language changed after being exposed to entrepreneurs. And I started believing and saying that everybody gets to be more entrepreneurial. Everybody has to be more entrepreneurial at this time of great
Everybody
change,
can
right?
have an agency. That's what you're saying.
Everybody has to use their agency. I think we have like a historical idea in our heads that like you would get assigned a job, if your parents were a doctor, you were a doctor and everybody's going to do, what's expected of them. And now things are changing too fast and we really have to own our path in a way that we didn't before. So that was the original idea. And so I ran these processes, lean startup and design thinking, interviewed lots of people, observed lots of people. I looked at the parents, some of the same parents that I looked at for the Adobe project, who had raised their children and were going back into the workforce and suddenly needed to have a career. And that's one way to help people be entrepreneurial. And I practiced and studied and did a lot of free coaching sessions to try to understand that world. I looked at people who were getting divorced and suddenly had to have a career and they never had to have one before. So I studied that. And what I ended up deciding to do was people who were like me in the sense of being in corporate and needing to work outside the organization. And really it started with my dear colleague, Amanda Cashin, who was at Illumina at the time, running Illumina's accelerator. So they had a startup accelerator.
Illumina is that a neuroscience kind of thing, right? That is
it's a genomics company. So their original genomics. Yeah. So their original mission was to be able to sequence a genome for $100.
Okay.
In a short, in a day or something. They probably the accelerator had a very interesting design. They were partnering with companies who were their customers and potential customers. So they were using.
Diana, my question is, where did your accelerator idea came to install in the corporations? Where that idea came for you, and how did you start that?
Well, yeah. So this is actually what happened. I met Amanda and could see that she had these needs. As a corporate person who's partnering outside, it's really lonely. And she was looking at Citrix. By this time, the accelerator at Citrix had closed, and she didn't know why. And she couldn't really get very much information about that. It was sort of a situation that was blind to her because the company itself is not going to publicize what happens when something closes.
Do you know the reasons?
I do know the reasons. So let's come back to that. I want to answer your first question first. So she wanted to talk to more people who had experiences like hers and understand like how common were her challenges when she sees something in the environment change like that, like an accelerator closing. What lessons should she take from that? What practices are working? What practices are not working? Under what circumstances? And that is why we started the Corporate Accelerator Forum. So she was the very first sponsor of our very first gathering. And we did it one time. We thought maybe it would be just a
That is
one-time
a
thing.
healthcare company. That is healthcare company.
Is a healthcare company. I mean, it can be used, people use it for microbes in that they're going to
Yeah.
use for making beer also, right? Like the cheese, like there's all kinds of things you can do with
Correct.
genomics, but healthcare is certainly a really huge component of it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I partly because of that, a lot of the folks that we talk to when we create these connecting experiences are in more complex industries like healthcare. It's partly because of the Rolodex, because that's just where we started. And it's also partly because in these more complex industries, it's more obvious that you cannot innovate by yourself you can't do all of your innovation internally. You just won't be able to see everything you need to see.
Yeah, I want to make that point a little bit
Mhm,
about that
sure.
interesting thing. I went to Redmond, Washington one time,
Mhm,
and then visiting my nephew. So
mhm,
I saw that something interesting. These are
mhm,
all. I went to a bar near that Microsoft actually.
mhm.
All of them are sitting. They're in the bar. There's a 10, chair. The tables are there. All the bunch of guys with 55, 60-year-old guys sitting on the gray hair guys, no woman there. And
Uh-huh.
sitting there, how could be innovation can come from there? These are all executives. They don't even understand what goes on in Alabama. I came from Atlanta, Georgia. We have a crime. We have a strip clubs. We have everything is going on there. We have a
Mhm.
lot of action in the place. That is
Yeah.
where the actual ideas come from, and why these guys are sitting in a cubicle, and how do they get the idea? It is a big challenge, so tell me your experience with these corporations. Move from that traditional thinking to corporate innovation is a requirement, is important.
Yeah. Well, part of the trick is that you can't actually get rid of the cubicle way of thinking. You shouldn't try, right? Like at the end of the day, when I was at Adobe, when I was at Citrix, it was really important that those products get delivered on time to the right places, that they get sold by the people who were selling them. That is where the today's money comes from. Is
Yeah.
from the core business continuing to function. So, look, somebody who's really, really inclined to work alone in a cubicle and got a lot done, that actually can be okay and can be an important part of what the corporation does. And at the same time, the world is changing so fast. They have to pay attention to what's going on in the outside world in a very present way, not just by reading papers. You have to almost feel it. You have to really be out in the world doing
Correct.
stuff, and that means participating in an entrepreneurial ecosystem, participating in an innovation ecosystem, and letting organizations with a different set of capacities and a different set of vulnerabilities uh, learn on your behalf.
This is for internal employees or outside people? That's is internal employees. First, you're talking about the
So
innovation center.
when I talk about open innovation, what I'm looking at is the organizations, not necessarily the individuals. How the individuals are organized can be different in different circumstances, but the large organizations need a way to partner, need a way to harness the different capabilities of organizations that are that have different constraints, different rules, different
Of their own
goals.
employees in the beginning, at least, right?
So when I'm talking about open innovation, I'm talking about the bridge in between. So
Bridging.
I'm glad we're diving in on this. So there is such a thing as internal innovation, and
Yeah.
there can be all kinds of, like the project that I did at Adobe. That's internal innovation. So that I
So,
think is
so let us talk about that a little bit.
sure.
Internal innovation. What are the challenges? What are the constraints? What are the drawbacks of the internal? Just the hiring. That's why I was giving example of the bar, that all the 55-year-old guys sitting down there in one
Right.
area. So what is that?
Yeah.
What is the drawback of the internal people only coming up with solutions? What is your experience?
Yeah. I mean, again, like there's nothing wrong with I don't think there's anything wrong with internal innovation. It's an important thing to do. It's just insufficient. It's just insufficient for getting the whole picture, right? So internally, I really liked that program that I was in at Adobe. It's called Kickbox. It's open source. It's on the web. People can adopt it. I can help you adopt it if you need help. But giving employees agency, maybe one of those people has something in, we'll say his, because you told me they're all men. One of those guys at the bar has something in his mind that he's just never thought of really trying out at work because he hasn't been invited to do so. He's never been asked.
Yeah.
There's never been any time carved out for him to actually bring his ideas to the table and try them out. So absolutely we can stimulate, we can create environments that invite more innovation from internal employees. We can, but they're still constrained when they're internal. And this is, I think, the what you're getting at. There are really important reasons why large organizations need to partner outside as part of their innovation work. One reason is that they have to get their day job done. That it's absolutely critical. They cannot, that guy who's maybe an engineer, the guy that you're thinking about in the bar with the gray hair is maybe an engineer who's been there for 20 years. His knowledge is absolutely critical. He has to do his day job. The things fall apart if he doesn't do his day job. So we can maybe like wish he was more innovative. We can maybe give him some separate time, give him a sabbatical or afternoons or something to get some of that innovation out of him. But at the end of the day, he's going to have to spend, the organization relies on him spending some time on that core stuff. Another reason is that the different departments in the organization have some tensions, and they're not, those tensions are okay too, but they're real. So for example, I wanted to do an innovation project at Citrix, an internal innovation project. And I wanted to use this technique that I learned about through design thinking workshops, which is that you put up a website and it's not real. The thing is not real, but you just put up like coming soon. We want to do this project, and there's put your name here to be on the waiting list. And you just see how many of the visitors to that page show interest. You don't take their money. You don't, and I couldn't do it.
Create a curiosity there.
Yeah, we find out how many people are at least interested enough to give up their email address, so that
let us talk one step there. So what are a lot of companies don't have the internal accelerator or incubator for the companies. What is their major compliance? Why they don't start internal innovation centers? A lot of them start, a lot of them don't start.
Why don't they start internal ones?
Well, yeah.
I mean, like of course there are like individual things that individual mindsets and pressures. Of course, that's part of it. I always think whenever I see a behavior that's like, that's a weird behavior, people should not be doing that. Whenever I see that, I look for what are the structural reasons behind it. The cause there, I think often is efficiency. They're so pressed for efficiency. They have cooked down their margins to nothing, and they just don't have it. Even if the CEO were to give up, they probably should sometimes give up a big portion of their salary. It's not enough spread around the whole company to actually give people any room to do things.
I'm going to differ with you. If there is a will, there is a way. It is just finding all these reasons that they don't start. In my view, that's one of those. Yeah, I'm not sure about that part.
No, I mean, of course, there are mindset things, but I can't tell you the patterns. Like like maybe it's not the right training. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk about these constraints. So when I was trying to do that project and I was stopped, it was because the legal department insisted that we put the name of the company on it. It was not correct from a legal point of view for us to put that project out there without letting everyone know that it was a Citrix project.
Okay.
But the brand department was not okay with us putting the brand name on that thing, right? And they're both doing their jobs correctly, but there's a tension. So we cannot do that kind of investigation internally. But a startup that we're working with absolutely can.
So there is a lot of bureaucratic hurdles that you see.
Yeah,
in
yeah,
our-
and there are processes that are just too slow for corporations to take advantage of. And so what they can do is look at the like a large organization has scale, has a huge number of customers, has knows so much about compliance, has all kinds of experts, really, really good things for innovation, but
Yeah,
it can't move fast.
I
Whereas a
agree with
startup
you.
has nothing and can't
Yeah.
move to that scale by itself. They need a big partner to do things, but they can move really fast. And so
Now
putting
you have
those
the
things together is really powerful. Can be really powerful.
now you have the company willing to start a innovation center in the throw people like you. Then bringing internal employees one area, then bringing, I like this your word you use it in innovation scouts, you call that, is a very I love that word. So how do you do that, innovation scouts? So you need to bring outside ideas to the table. That's what is your goal, not just the internal problems in internal solutions, but there's sometimes maybe a innovative idea maybe lying outside of the company to
Yeah.
advance the goals of the corporation. Tell us a little bit of innovation scouts idea.
Sure. I mean, many companies employ people whose entire day job is to go and look at what technologies might be interesting, and they can look at different levels of distance from the company's core. So they can look at things that would make a small change that would make what we're already doing better, and they can look at things that would make a bigger change, taking a technology that the company already has and giving it to a new audience. What are partners who could help us in that space, or taking an audience that we already have and bringing them something new that's related? What are the partners that we could look at in that way? And then they can also look really far out. If the world changes in ways that we imagine, who would we want to be partnering with? And they have all kinds of tools that they can use to do that, different databases, and they can also open the door and see. They can put up something on the website that allows folks who think their technology or business model might be relevant to kind of ring the doorbell and contact somebody.
And also, innovation scouts could be future employees of that company, right? If they come in with the already familiar with the company and all their philosophies and all their work
Oh, sure.
situations.
Right. It could go either way. Innovation scouts from the large organization could get hired by the startups.
Yeah.
And on the other side of it, the company, the large company could acquire individuals or acquire the company to pull those individuals in.
You're
So those
going to love
relationships
this.
are really important.
You're going to love this idea of
Okay.
innovation situation. I'm going to present to you. Really, that's happened in this company. I tell you, as I'm going to present to you, I'm going to bring you on the side, both of us. You can
Okay.
comment anything. But after that, I come back and ask you your how do they reach you and all those things that.
Great.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to do. This is a really you can really relate to this problem that this yogurt wars created. Actually, how did the yogurt wars create a revolution in? So I'm going to talk about that, and then after that we can come back.
Okay.
I lived in Atlanta, Georgia. So I used to one day I was traveling from Vanderbilt, my son's visiting my son, and coming back to my home. Somebody said that somebody wants to meet you, Ramana. Can you go and meet him? And he wants to meet you. And I don't know who is that person is. And so I went to meet them. They want some help or guidance from you. Me and my daughter went to see him. He is an Alabama country star. What the hell? I don't even hear the country music. I don't know what it is, what he's doing. So he took us, he said that he gave me a cup of coffee and we sat down together. He was talking about, Ramana, some of my friends told me, you're a smart guy. That, do you know how do you increase the productivity of these, my cows? The cattle, then milk production and modification of the gene modifications he's asking. And I am a physicist.
Wow.
You got the wrong guy, but I can guide you to the Emory University. That was he became a good friend. He's a great guy. But another strange encounter with the gentry. So actually, I want to tell you how to make a yogurt, how the crowdsourcing in a small. I came from a small village in India, 2,000 people. So how do they make a yogurt in the small town? So yogurt is a very important ingredient in Indian food. So they boil the milk, and then what they do in the small towns, the mothers all get together, women, they share the best culture. That's called jamana. They
Okay.
they culture they so eventually by the years they became one of the best ones. They know, they spread the word, everybody gets that, and then they put in the yogurt, and then in 24 hours it become a boiled milk becomes a yogurt. That is the process in a small villages in India they follow, and in rural Africa and all those places. So that easy. But there is a company, Danisco company, does enzymes, and they manufacture these cultures. They are big. If you
Hmm.
see Danone yogurt, if you see this yogurt, Chobani, these are all the Danisco sells these cultures to these people. So there's a
Oh,
big
wow.
business. Is the culture, the business of cultures is a huge business.
Huh.
So the yogurt, so bacteria makes a good yogurt. There's a good bacteria. So the yogurt gets messed up by viruses. Viruses get in and then mess it up the yogurt. So that's
I
bad for
see.
business. So they need to stay away from the viruses. Viruses are everywhere, right? So they need to fend off the viruses. So what they didn't understand is a mystery there. Same culture they're using, but some yogurt is coming good and some yogurt is going bad. They didn't understand why it is this kind of things happening, because they're losing money. They said that all those people said that no, 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 you mix it something else. Maybe you're mixing cultures and all those things.
Hmm.
But they were two people, very strange kind of people, internal organization. I will tell
Uh-huh.
you, internal organization, two people,
Okay.
Denisco. Philip Horvath is from French guy. I don't know why this Melissa came in the picture, but she's a wastewater treatment from Michigan. They thought about it together. They say bacteria is fending off some of these viruses, even though the culture is a bad. Some bacteria in the culture is fending off these viruses.
Hmm.
That's a mystery. They don't know exactly the mechanism, all those things. So that mystery, I don't know why they're related. She's from Michigan wastewater treatment plant. He is from Denisco, microbiologist. So somehow they came up with this idea of the bacteria is doing some kind of strange thing. Denisco went to University of Berkeley, California, and then that is a bombshell that they thought it's a
Hmm.
simple thing, it is a chemistry problem, they thought. But they found something, two different people found, they're working on it. Emmanuel Charpentier, she's from
Hmm.
Max Planck Institute for Infectious Biology, Germany, and then Jennifer Doudna is from California, Berkeley. Both of them are found out the amazing story behind this mystery. I'm going to tell you what that mystery is in a second. I have to give analogies, a metaphor for you to understand this. So, so Amazon package, you have a subdivision. Amazon packages are missing sometimes. So somebody they call police. The
Hmm.
subdivision people call police and say, "Oh, somebody is stealing our Amazon packages." I'm just giving a story, analogy, metaphor.
Hmm.
Canine versus Cas9. I wanted to call that. But what they do, so they see a random guy. What they do, police, they will take his driver's license and then put his name and date of birth and everything, and they put in the database, right? That's what they do. First time, hey, and they give a trespass warning. You don't have any relatives here. You don't live here. What the hell are you here? So they give him a trespass warning, and then they send him go. But the guy shows up a second time, same place. Then police know that they check in the database. His name is there already. That's it. They send a canine unit and then get him arrested, and he goes to jail. That's what it is. He's the one. So similar analogy. It is called CRISPR. CRISPR is a clustered, regularly interspaced, short palindromic repeat. I want to tell you, I'm not a biologist, I'm a physicist, but I'm explaining to the physicist a little bit. So, excuse me if I'm say something not perfectly right. But you can do CRISPR, can be animals, plants, humans. So I'm going to explain you similar analogy in the CRISPR. So bacteria cell, that is a human cell or bacterial cell, suspicious phage is a virus, kind of a virus thing, enters the cell first to destroy the cell. But the cell doesn't know whether it is a good one or bad one. So it doesn't know it is really can damage the cell or not. So what it does, it takes a Cas1, Cas2, some other, this is a molecule, a molecule goes there, it strips off some of the strands from that virus and puts in the, just to keep in the database. I want to check on you. I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm going to put you on the database, and it puts the genetic database of the bacteria. Just puts in a very smart way. It understood the security, DNA security. It puts in the different spaces, all these steps. It uses a very clever mechanism to put, instead of putting in one place, something can be damaged. So she puts, and they distributed this information across the genetic, that's the interspace. Interspace comes there. It puts into the that strips into the bacterial DNA, cell DNA. It puts in. Then what happens? Second time the virus, so it damaged the cell. It didn't destroy it, but it is somehow cell survived. Then second time the virus, same guy comes in. It knows immediately. It compares with that DNA, that embedded DNA inside. It compares it to the virus. Oh my, this is the same guy. He is coming back. Database checking. Then immediately it sends a Cas9, is a scissors, molecular scissor. It sends it there and cut in half this virus. Cut in half into this virus. That's what, depending of, that's how that yogurt saving the yogurt from the bad viruses. It is cutting out the viruses in half. Wonderful mechanism. The mechanism one accolades. It is a really stunning revelation. It is a scientific community where this cut and paste mechanism it is doing. So scientists thought about it. It can revolutionize medicine, muscular dystrophy, genetic diseases, liver, lung diseases, and then sickle cell anemia. All those diseases can be cured through CRISPR, engineering cut and paste of these genetic codes. That is what the CRISPR is. So what they did, so there is a two women, that's right, Emmanuel Charpentier and Jennifer Doudna from the University of Berkeley and the Max Planck Institute. And then there is another guy, Feng Zhang, he's from the MIT. They're all doing the same thing. The Broad Institute, they call it Broad Institute. They're all they filed a patents together. So they filed so there was a big drama that went on. Who is the doctors? It is a huge drama. Okay. So what they did was is a Feng Zhang. They see all the money everywhere because it is the pharmaceutical company saw, oh my God, this yogurt is solving all these problems. We need to jump in. And they started, everybody went to courts. So during the same time, Chinese doctor took this CRISPR mechanism and created two twins, Lola and Nana. He also put a name there, Lulu and Nana. So this is create a big problem, ethical problems in the CRISPR in the world, in the scientific genetic engineering world. It created ethical problems. So what they did, so this is done same time the Wuhan virus came in, and then they thought they did not want to give it to Feng Zhang. Feng Zhang boss wrote a very critical of woman in the New York Times, So that is pretty sealed. They got rid of that guy and they gave it to the Nobel Prize for Jennifer Doudna. Well deserving. So Emmanuel Charpentier won the Nobel Prize, both of them together. Feng Zhang got a Tang Prize from China. He did not get the prize. There is another guy 20 years ago. He found this mechanism, but is in agriculture chemistry. Ishino is also ignored in the same process. So they became a famous. Jennifer Doudna and Emmanuel Charpentier did this one. There's a crazy guy came in the picture. Is a Mad Dog is called. He was on the Facebook Live. I watched him. He's the craziest guy. So he was using CRISPR in the garage and to produce. He was experimenting on himself. So I don't know how we got a blonde hair, but God knows something went wrong. He said that he made the biggest mistake. That's what he said after that. We don't know what is going on there. But so the crazy people, ethical problems came in. So yogurt, this is a huge lawsuits went on, a legal mess. Patient advocacy groups, a lot of India sued it, Brazil government sued it, universities sued their research, NGOs, and then government said that yogurt is not yogurt is a government. The process is owned by government. They said. So everybody went to the courts. They're going through courts. That's why actually Nobel Prize was delayed for 5 years because of the legal mess. So then, still there is a lot of, but there is another thing came out of this process as a storage. I'm going to tell you this is an amazing story. The flash drive, you see that USB flash drive, we use it. Then there's a magnetic storage, basically one and zeros stores on the magnet, right? That's what the magnetic storage is typical. Somebody came up with a brilliant idea, University of Washington. How can we, because Cas9, this molecule writing inside the DNA code, can we put the storage in the DNA itself, in the bacteria itself, the storage, that interspecies thinking. They came up with a brilliant idea. They said that they actually did it. That's called the small movie, animation movie they did, Hello World, they put the words there. There's two things they did in the bacteria DNA, they embedded this movie. Isn't it amazing? From a bacterial storage, it is a bacterial storage, is a hard drive, is beats billion ways. 10 movies you can put in the USB drive. You can put 1 million movies in one bacteria. 1 million movies. Decays 1,000. So bacteria replicates itself. Remember that. So it is thousands of years, it's a decades, it will stay there forever, the information. If we want to, even the human race gone, we can keep that our stories in the DNA of the bacteria. Moore's law, no limits at all. This is the amazing thing came out. That is the entire 1 gram of DNA, entire data of the world, you can store it. Can you believe that? That is the fascinating outcome of the CRISPR, but there's a lot of research going on. Genetic diseases, cancer, drug resistance, malnutrition, all of them. Clean up oil spills, protects endangered species, reconstruct ancient diets. They reconstructed the ancient diet, actually, what they're eating. Bioart, you can, silkworm, they did in the MIT, they did a silkworm, they controlled the silkworm. That's a very controversial. They told to build a art through. They directed the silkworm to build an art. We're controlling even this. So the ribosome, he wrote a Venkata Venki Ramakrishnan. He has won the Nobel Prize in the ribosome inventor. So he wrote a book on this one. Is about this the genetic revolution and data storage. You can free to read it. Thank you for watching. I'm going to bring now. So vanilla yogurt, what they found out is it makes you happy. I didn't know that there is a research done on it. So we'll ask Diana, what did that do? Okay, Diana. So have you tried a vanilla ice cream?
Oh, yeah. I think we all knew that eating ice cream would make us happy. We don't need too many scientists to tell us that. But I was really struck by the way that technologies, even when they're really complicated, are ready to be invented when they're ready to be invented, and then everybody invents it at once. Maybe somebody gets credit, but everybody invents it at once. We have that story also from the invention of the telephone. Yeah. The story is that Alexander Graham Bell was racing to the patent office because someone else was inventing it too, and that should make large organizations a little nervous, right? Because whatever you're thinking of internally, there's 10 startups that have already thought of that externally, and if you're not partnering with them or paying attention to them in some way, you're gonna miss all of that extra vision.
Absolutely, that's a great point. So how do you? But sometimes the challenge is the young entrepreneurs think very different way than so if there is a lesson from CRISPR. You see that it transformed from a biology to technology so smooth, seamless in a way. So that is where a lot of ideas, a lot of things can merge together. Entrepreneurs can provide that. So what do you think of that? Corporations, for example, I'm not too far from Johnson & Johnson here, Innovation Center, but they don't allow outsiders. Sometimes they're some of the rigid because they want to keep secrets or something. But I don't know what is the challenges that why they don't want outsiders to come in partnership with them, and they need a people like you to help them, or why they don't, what is stopping them?
I so some stuff they do have to keep secret, right? I'm going to keep on we're going to keep on pushing on each other in this way, right? Some stuff they do have to keep secret because this is capitalism and this is how it works. Whoever has the patent gets to defend it, and leaking information can cause all kinds of havoc in the business. So they because they're used to that idea, they become very, very hesitant to share. They think of those walls as needing to protect everything. They just overextend the protection principle, when in fact, if they do that, if they're not willing to have any conversations with anybody, they completely miss the opportunity to see what else is happening, to see how the world is
Excellent point.
changing,
Overextending.
what's the next thing to be invented if they're not willing to be a part of that conversation.
You made an excellent point. Overextending protectionism. That's what you did. Excellent point. So how do you convince them? Hey, you don't need. What are the blocks that you have? How do you convince yourself? Go to the corporation. Say, I'm going to protect you, but still, you need to open up. How do you do that? And how do you convince those kind of people?
I mean, the good news is we're a tiny little boutique organization. We don't take that many clients. And, I do feel we've been a little bit ahead. So there are lots of good examples. And that's where, as you know, Ramana, but we haven't really talked about yet, I've written a book about this. It's called Open Innovation Works. It's coming out this fall. And there are lots of great examples, different kinds of engines that large organizations can use to figure out what is the right level of sharing, what is the right way to combine the capacities of one organization with another. So startup accelerators, incubators, innovation centers, to your point a little bit, corporate venture capital, pilot projects, streams of projects that partners can do together to prove out whether there's something worthy to be found. That partnering with universities, partnering with consortia. And I think before all of that, lining up the intentions of internal people to make sure everybody's on the same page about what we're trying to accomplish. But the scary stories do a lot of work, right? You told the Borders story. You told the Blockbuster story. We have a story about Borders that we like to sell. I don't know if you remember Borders Books.
Yeah.
Which is actually a very innovative company that solved all kinds of problems. But when they went to solve for change in the world, the rise of e-commerce, they partnered the wrong way.
Did I put your website right? CAF.com or
No.
Tell me that. I will put it there.
It's a long one. It's corporateacceleratorforum.com. Can I type it for you? I don't know if I give it to you in the chat, will that help? Corporateacceleratorforum.com. You can see our offerings there. We actually have some new AI adoption offerings. And then I'll also put in the website for the book, which is openinnovation.works.
.com. Is it .com?
So corporateacceleratorforum.com, and a separate website for the book is openinnovation.works.
Okay. Corporateacceleratorforum.org, right?
.com.
.com.
We are not a nonprofit.
Okay, that's all.
We're definitely a for-profit company.
So I did can you see that?
There we go. Corporateacceleratorforum.com. Perfect. Yep. Well done.
So yeah. So what do you do? The clients come to you and then ask you what they usually ask you, what the corporations ask you in general.
I mean, they want to know how they can communicate. They often come having been burned by some partnerships that they've tried. So they've attempted to partner with a startup that was unscrupulous, or they've attempted to partner, and this is actually more common, the internal, in the innovation world, we often talk about antibodies, stealing from the healthcare analogy, right? Like the internal processes or mismatched internal goals have shot down a project that was really, really promising. So they come looking for, how can we weave our way through this the next time so that we can get something useful out of it. And often it's really helpful just to understand that the two organizations, the two types of organizations trying to work together, have different timelines. Just everybody like understanding that the other organization is going to move a little faster than you're expecting, or is going to move a little slower than you're expecting, and how long you'll need to wait. They can find ways to accommodate each other if they're transparent about it.
How do you convince the entrepreneurs, hey, they're not going to steal your ideas, that the corporations, they're a big corporation, they're
Right.
going to help together? How do you talk with them?
And again, it's a legitimate concern. I have seen big companies try to steal ideas from startups. And I've also seen in the conversation, corporations get inspired. So they're not really trying to steal, but they realize something new in the conversation with startups. And so there is risk. There is risk for founders. I think it's really important to have your IP strategy straight and to be very confident in that strategy, whatever strategy you've chosen. So you know where your boundaries are, and you're not giving anybody a nervous feeling by being nervous about it yourself. And then there are ways to partner that really don't get into the technology itself. So for example, I was talking about Illumina Accelerator earlier. Their strategy, they were not partnering with technologies with companies that had technologies that they wanted to eventually bring in and sell. A lot of accelerators do. A lot of CVCs, corporate venture capital arms, do that. They accelerate companies they want to acquire. In their case, they were accelerating their customers. So they're helping their customers do better, and there's no conflict of interest. Everybody's on the same page. So finding a way that there isn't conflict, you don't want to own each other's patents. That's not the business that you would try to be in. That's one way to keep it really, really clean.
Diana, thank you. It is a very educational. They're talking with you. It is informative. And actually, the corporations and the entrepreneurs need to have that dialogue. You are the best person to mediate that kind of a dialogue. Thank you so much for joining with us. It's truly educational.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Bye, guys. Good night.
We are retelling their stories through our patented designs that can be worn on scrubs, t-shirts, printed on conference bags, and endless other promotional materials. Daily Wear for Medicine is the first ever of its kind to create curiosity in medicine through visual art. We at MedBricks are celebrating unsung heroes of the past who made enormous contributions to the field of medicine through our unique campaign called Daily Wear for Medicine. You can wear it, carry it, and give it.
Just 1 second.
That was fun.
Yeah.